They taught you algebra, World War II, and how to fill in test bubbles. Then they handed you a $1.8 trillion bill and said, good luck. 12 years of classes, massive debt, a job market that requires stamps, not skills. Now a single class of software can teach, grade, and tutor better than much of the system, often for pennies. The story begins long before online learning or student loans. In the early 1800s, reformers like Horace Mann looked to Prussia for a model: uniform classrooms, age grading, compulsory attendance. The goal was not merely literacy, it was reliable, standardized citizens. Mann and others praised this standardization as civic virtue, but sociologists later called the hidden curriculum what it really was: training in punctuality, obedience, and compliance, traits valuable to factories and offices more than to free thinking. So the schoolhouse wasn't just an ideal, it was a tool. That tool would later attract massive money and powerful actors. By the turn of the 20th century, industrial fortunes began to shape schooling. John D. Rockefeller funded the General Education Board, the Rockefeller philanthropic arm that poured millions into U.S. education, especially in the South, and pushed a business-like approach to schooling. The GEB favored vocational training for many communities, helping institutionalize a model oriented toward producing labor rather than literary thinkers. This wasn't conspiratorial micromanagement. The GEB publicly framed its mission as improving education. But historians note its impact: large funding, priorities set by donors, and the spread of vocational curricula and standardized practices across regions that needed money and administrative expertise. Imagine a city where the only roads anyone builds lead to the factory district. Rockefeller funded roads and schools that routed students toward specific kinds of work. Infrastructure plus money shapes outcomes, and education was no exception. Money buys leverage, and leverage turned schooling into a national system that matched industrial needs. The modern apparatus consolidated federal and state systems, teacher professionalization, standardized testing, and the higher education sector. These institutions standardized learning at scale, and with scale came markets: textbooks, testing companies, teacher training programs, and later edtech vendors. Standardization created something valuable to employers: a signal. But signals are only valuable while they're scarce. To maintain scarcity, a credential ecosystem emerged, a complex of high-cost colleges, selective admissions, and norms that turned degrees into a gate. If early schooling was the production line, higher education became the club, a stamp at the end of the pipeline that said, "You passed compliance." That stamp was only as valuable as the market allowed it to be. And markets, as we're about to show, are profitable to many actors. That profitability created the incentives that kept the system in place, even as outcomes lagged. Schools aren't just public goods, they're an ecosystem. Every year, billions change hands: tuition, loans, campus services, textbooks, software, sports, and the local economies of college towns. When a system becomes profitable, it resists change. In the US, outstanding student debt is now roughly $1.8 trillion, a consumer finance market larger than many national economies. That debt finances tuition, but it also pumps revenue into servicers, refinancers, collections, and financial services that profit from interest and servicing fees. Public policy soldered this machine: federal guarantees, limited bankruptcy relief, and the availability of loans at scale. When billions of dollars are available to fund education, new business models form to capture those dollars. Follow the money and you find why reform is hard. Companies like Navient, Nelnet, and others earn servicing and refinancing revenues. These firms post substantial quarterly revenues and service portfolios worth hundreds of billions. It's a large financial layer sitting on top of student debt. In short, loans create an ongoing revenue stream long after tuition is paid, and that creates stakeholders with incentives to preserve the flow. But the money doesn't stop there. Textbooks and educational content form another big market. Publishers like Pearson, Cengage, and McGraw-Hill, plus K-12 and higher ed content providers, generate billions in annual revenue. Digital subscriptions, edition cycles, and one-off test prep all add to the pot. Think of textbooks like razor blades sold with a razor handle. Schools buy the standard handle, publishers sell the expensive blades of new editions and test prep. Then there are the local economies: universities anchor towns, housing, food, nightlife, retail. Entire small economies spin around seasons of enrollment. When enrollment falls, entire local economies wobble. When tuition rises, local prices follow. That's another set of stakeholders whose livelihoods depend on the education sector remaining large. Finally, add college sports, alumni fundraising, research contracts, and endowments, institutions that have become major players in municipal and national economies. This ecosystem resists systemic change because the costs of disruption are concentrated and the benefits diffuse. And this entire machine runs on one premise. Degrees signal meaningful value. What if that premise breaks? Before AI ever arrived, the system had structural flaws. Massive investment in edtech often resulted in digitized textbooks and classrooms that looked modern, but still taught the same content in the same way. And test scores were stubbornly flat in many systems. Why? Because the problem was the design of the curriculum and institutions, not the delivery. You can throw expensive tablets at a curriculum optimized for compliance and expect revolution, but all you'll get is digitized compliance. Then AI arrives and changes the rules. November 2022, ChatGPT enters the mainstream. Suddenly, knowledge transfer, the old school's main value proposition, is instant, personalized, and cheap. If education's core deliverable is information, then AI is the new distribution channel, the smartphone moment for learning. The typewriter didn't disappear because people wanted less writing. It disappeared because better tech replaced it. The same logic applies here. That substitution undermines the credential unless the system adapts. This is where it gets urgent. Recent high-frequency labor data shows a concerning pattern. Early career workers in AI-exposed fields have seen employment declines relative to older workers. The Stanford Digital Economy Lab calls these early employees the canaries in the coal mine. McKinsey, Brookings, and others estimate large shares of work hours are automatable. Brookings finds more than 30% of workers could see half of their tasks disrupted. McKinsey identifies tens of millions of hours convertible into automation gains. These reports converge. The middle and lower rungs, routine cognitive work, clerical tasks, first-line analysis are exposed. The latter effect is critical. For decades, millions used entry roles to climb: internship, junior analyst, assistant, then manager. If those entry rungs disappear, the pathway narrows dramatically. The early career losses hit young people the hardest: less experience, fewer contacts, and less bargaining power. That leads to real economic effects: wage pressure at the bottom, longer job search spells, delayed household formation, and geographic shocks in regions that depended on entry-level office work. Without policy action, retraining, apprenticeships, income support, we risk long-term scarring. So who benefits? The owners of capital and platform firms that control AI tools see enormous productivity gains, and those gains will be captured unevenly unless workers can bargain or reskill. Employers will shift hiring toward demonstrable outputs, portfolios, micro-credentials, short projects, and references to AI-verified work. Research and labor trackers already show movement toward skills-first approaches in some industries. That's the credential reset. If AI can teach and perform tasks, then degrees become weaker signals, unless they certify things that AI can't: leadership, tacit knowledge, domain judgment, or credentials for tightly regulated professions like medicine and law. The future will reward those who can use AI, not those who simply hold a stamp. Several accessible AI revenue streams are available to anyone with a basic computer and a bit of entrepreneurial drive. Here are some that are making people money as you're watching this now. AI content creation. People are using AI to generate scripts, blogs, and social posts at scale. Freelance AI tools, automating graphic design, copywriting, and even video editing for clients. AI-assisted e-commerce, from automated product descriptions to customer service chatbots. Micro SaaS with AI APIs, building simple tools on top of AI models and charging subscriptions. AI tutoring and education, personalized digital mentors for students or professionals. This isn't techno-utopian cheerleading. There are ethical hazards at play: hallucinations, bias, privacy issues, and the risk of AI reinforcing inequality. The trillion-dollar education engine was built for the industrial age. AI did not simply improve learning, it exposed where the machine was hollow. You can ignore it and be processed by history, or you can learn the machine and become leverage in a world that pays for capability, not stamps.